Hello gorgeous peeps, I'm Chris from TechSpert and today we are going to be unboxing the Nokia X30 5G, a fresh new eco-friendly mid-range mobile, so eco-friendly that even the box looks like it's made out of compost. It'll cost you 399 quid here in Byyyeeeee, and it's also available via HMD's quirky new circular subscription service for £22 a month. And for that cash, you've got a slick stock version of Android, a punchy 6.43-inch AMOLED display, proper good gaming chops, all-day battery life, and hopefully some respectable camera tech. But we will be fully testing out that camera tech, the gaming chops, all that good stuff in this video. So enough banging on, let's whip the Nokia X30 5G on out. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers. So step one, what is in that box? You've got a Nokia X30 5G, of course, half a rainforest's worth of quick start guides, a highly enticing Type-C USB cable, and you get a wee pokey pin device chucked in there to get your SIM in the bugger, and that's basically it. No power adapter or condom case or nothing like that. So here we have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Nokia X30 5G, a 6.43-inch blower that feels slightly bigger than that size because you've got reasonably chunky bezels surrounding that display. Nothing too horrendous though, it's not like the Nokia blowers of yesteryear with the proper big Jimmy Hill chin and the actual Nokia branding on there. But the X30 is reasonably comfortable to clutch despite having quite flat edge, and at least it's not a proper big old chunkster like the iPhones. And that aluminium frame is 100% recycled, while the polycarbonate arse is mostly constructed from recycled plastics. In fact, the manufacturer HMD Global has even included this handy little guide inside of the box. You can see exactly which bits are recycled, so you can feel slightly less guilty if you decide you can't be arsed with gardening anymore and you just concrete over the bastard. I've got to say, I would have preferred a glass and metal backing like what you got on the Nothing phone, which is a very similar price point, but at least it's a matte finish here on the Nokia X30, and it seems very resistant to greasy, oily fingerprints and other grime. Got a choice of just two colours with this smartphone. This is the cloudy blue model, otherwise you can also grab it in ice white. And overall it's a very smart and slick design. I rather like it, even though the camera island looks like it's kind of drifted away from the corner a bit. And that Gorilla Glass Victus display should hopefully prove as shatter resistant as usual if you do happen to accidentally drop this bugger face first onto some concrete or whatever. But Victus does tend to scratch up rather easily as well, and there's no pre-installed screen protector on here. So I would highly recommend slapping on one yourself if you want that screen to stay box fresh. And while there isn't a condom case bundled with the Nokia X30 5G, you can grab yourself an official clear case from HMD. Feels nice and tough, and it's once again constructed from 100% recycled materials. So you can slap that bad boy on, and because it's completely transparent, it doesn't hide that lovely smart design. And the good news is the Nokia X30 5G is IP67 water and dust resistant, so you can drop it in a bath, in a swimming pool or whatever. As long as you pull it straight out, give it a good toweling off, should hopefully be alright. And that matches the likes of the Nothing phone and the Pixel 6a, also found at this price point. Now, like other Nokia branded smartphones, the X30 5G offers a stock version of Android here. It's Android 12 still, hopefully it'll get upgraded to Android 13 soon, and it is unmolested with sacks of crapware or heavy launcher action. And with Nokia branded smartphones, you usually get a good bit of guaranteed software support as well. So the Nokia X30 comes with the reassurance of 3 Android OS updates and 3 years of security updates too. So you're sorted up to Android 15, and you've also got extra peace of mind because of 3 years extended warranty. At least you do here in the UK, can't speak for every other region. And it's another step towards saving the planet, because it means in a year or two this phone still won't be obsolete. You won't have to chuck it on a bonfire and spunk up for a new one. And it's your typical Android 12 experience here on the Nokia X30, including all those great features such as the privacy dashboard, so you can quickly see exactly what has been accessing the likes of the camera and the microphone. HMD has also added in face unlock support, which seems to work an absolute charm. And that's just an alternative option to the in-display fingerprint sensor, just a basic optical effort as you would expect at this sort of price point, but it seems absolutely fine as long as your thumbs aren't a bit damp, in which case, yeah, it does struggle a bit. That sensor is slightly awkwardly positioned right down near the bottom of the screen. I'd have preferred it a bit further up, but hey-ho. Now if we tease out the Nokia X30's SIM tray, you'll see that it is a double-sided effort. There's room in there for 2 SIMs simultaneously, and this Nokia blower can also accept eSIMs. That's a good little feature to have at this mid-range price point, but sadly there is bugger all room in that SIM tray for a micro SD memory card to expand the either 128 or 256 gigs of onboard storage. But at least that's a fair amount of space for downloading lots of shows and movies to enjoy on the go. Speaking of which, that 6.43-inch AMOLED screen is as good as any other mid-range panel out there, pumping out finely detailed Full HD plus visuals. I love the wide viewing angles, the contrast is nice and sharp, super deep blacks, and the colours are pretty poppy as well. And the good news is that selfie cam orifice isn't too intrusive, even though it is centrally positioned. It's quite a dinky affair, so it doesn't get in the way of too much action when you go full screen. And this is a hella bright panel as well. When you bump it all the way up to those maximum levels, it's absolutely eye-piercing. So yeah, fine if it's a bit sunny outdoors. It's pretty limited controls once you dive into the Nokia X30's display settings. You can't really tinker with the color output beyond setting a night light to make things a bit warmer and easier on the eye in the evenings, but you can adjust the screen refresh rate so it's either on 90 Hz or the bog standard 60 Hz. But if you want that lovely fluid finish, definitely keep it on 90 Hz. Unfortunately, the Nokia X30 only offers up a mono speaker setup, no stereo arrangement, but how is that speaker? If the Xperia 5 was a whiskey, it'd be a 10-year-old Glenmorangie. Surprisingly complex and so enjoyable that you'll soon forget how many you've had until you finally end up with your head down the bowl, heaving up every drop and probably half your internal organs. Well, unfortunately, the answer to the question, how is that speaker, is just not very good. It's very tinny, not particularly loud either, so I would highly recommend getting some headphones on the go, whether you're enjoying video, a bit of music, whatever. Unfortunately, there is bugger all headphone jack action on the X30, so you will have to go wireless, otherwise use one of those bloody dongles. So performance, and the Nokia X30 5G packs in Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 chipset. That's found in quite a few other mid-range mobiles these days. And that's backed here by either 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. I've got the 8 giga, and the everyday experience is perfectly smooth, helped along by that slick stock Android experience. If you can't survive without a hot bit of benchmarking, well, here you go. Here's the Geekbench scores, fairly typical single core score, quite impressive on the multi-core effort. And if you're a gamer, you will certainly be satisfied, well you should be, unless you're a really fussy bugger, because the likes of Genshin Impact, which is quite demanding, runs pretty well, even on the medium to higher detail settings, although once you do hit the higher levels, you will see some frame rate wobbles. The arse end of this smartphone did start to get a little bit warm after around 30-ish minutes, but the performance wasn't throttled, it still played perfectly well. That flat screen was beautifully responsive and sensitive, so no issues there. Should do well for your PUBGs, your Call of Duty mobiles, all that good stuff. The only thing you're missing here is a dedicated gaming mode. And you've also got full 5G support thanks to the built-in modem on that Snapdragon 695. So if you are doing a bit of online gaming on the move, it should keep you connected and keep everything running as it should. As for that battery tech, well, the Nokia X30 5G packs in a 4200 mAh cell, fairly modest capacity overall, but it should prove good enough to keep you powered up for a reasonably long day. Thankfully, the battery drain seems pretty slow here on the X30, and that's because you've got that energy-efficient Qualcomm chipset. You've also got that lovely stock version of Android, so there's not too much drawn power unnecessarily. And when you do need to power it back up again, well, just bung a Type-C USB cable in it. You will have to provide your own power adapter, of course, because there's none in the box, but, you know, saving the planet, etc. And it supports up to 33 watt wired charging, so not the nippiest around at this price point, but pretty respectable. There's no wireless charging support here, unfortunately, which you can actually find on a few other phones around this £400 price point, the likes of the HTC Desire 22 Pro, the Nothing phone, and the iPhone SE 2022. So last up, a lovely bit of camera action, and what you got here is a 50 megapixel primary sensor with optical image stabilization, plus a basic 13 meg ultra wide angle snapper. That UI, pretty straightforward stuff, and the Nokia X30 boasts one of the best cameras that I've tested on a Nokia blower for quite a while now. This works pretty well in tricky lighting, be it high contrast or more ambient environments. You get respectable levels of detail packed into every picture, despite the fact that this phone uses pixel binning. I didn't have to chuck many of my test photos at all, mainly just those involving a moving subject. Sometimes unexpected motion can result in blur even in daylight, which can be a bit irritating. You've got an upgraded night mode here for your low light shots, and this works really well. The picture will be much closer to what you see with the naked eye in terms of the exposure levels and the color reproduction, with less noise creeping in. The focus works pretty well. Occasionally you can get a little bit confused, so you just have to be patient with it, especially in lower light conditions. But overall good stuff, fast shutter speed as well, and you've got some basic AI smarts on here, so for instance if it detects a face it'll say, hey, why not swap to the portrait mode? This serves up a variety of different options, including hearts, butterflies, all kinds of stuff for that bokeh action. A few of the bonus photo modes, including the aforementioned night mode, and if you hit up more, you've got the likes of the dedicated Pro mode, particularly handy if you like to shoot in RAW for editing on the fly. Sadly, however, when it comes to shooting video, you are limited to Full HD 1080p footage. There's no 4K option here. So here's some of my basic Full HD footage that I snapped over the past 48 hours. Does a reasonable job for your simple basic home movies. And like the Pro Photo mode, you also get a Pro Cinema mode as well, which allows you to tinker with some of the settings. You can shoot at 24 frames per second for that cinematic vibe, although it would have been better if it was at 4K level. You've got grids and steady video, etc. And there's a variety of filters you can apply to get a very different kind of visual vibe, which as you can see there, you've got instant feedback there on screen. And then last up around front, you've got a 16 megapixel selfie shooter, which is pretty good for your shareable shots. You can once again get a portrait mode, bit of action on the go, and the front facing camera actually supports that night mode too. The selfie shooter is good in daylight and does work well in those low light conditions thanks to that night mode as well. So the Nokia X30 is a potential for your nightclub selfies when you've had a skin full of Bacardi breezes. And that in a nutshell, my lovelies, is the fresh new Nokia X30 5G, an eco-friendly mid-range mobile packing some pretty decent specs, some respectable camera tech as well. It'll be good for you gamers. Just a few little issues with it, such as the rather crappy mono speaker setup. But what do you guys reckon? Are you tempted by the Nokia X30 5G over its biggest rivals, the likes of the Pixel 6a and that Nothing phone? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do plug, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech. And have yourselves a really wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.